I need you to wear a surgical mask until you're feeling better. Is that okay?
That's rude.
The early movies in the MCU and DCEU, where the focus was clearly more on world building than actually making a good movie. It's Iron Man 2 versus Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice.
Why did you say that name?
Batman v Superman has Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill as Batman and Superman respectively. Batman is a vigilante that brands and murders criminals at a rate that would make Michael Keaton's Batman blush.
Oh, that's not right. No.
Why is he doing this? Well, a good theory is that he went mad when the Joker killed Robin and started losing track of his rules. A Robin that Zack Snyder has established is Dick Grayson and not Jason Todd like in the comic book. So God forbid we get a Nightwing in the DCEU. But that is not the reason for Batman's actions. Alfred explicitly tells us the reason Batman is going on his killing sprees is because he's going nuts because Superman is around and apparently doesn't like the fact that he isn't the cock of the walk anymore.
Men fall from the sky. The gods hurl thunderbolts. Innocents die. That's how it starts. The fever, the rage, the feeling of powerlessness that turns good men cruel.
The Robin reason is actually better, but that is just an Easter egg in the movie and literally means nothing to the story. Anyways, Batman wants to kill Superman despite the fact that Superman is saving people. Batman has been planning to kill him for a year and a half, which means Superman has been saving lives for a year and a half, and that means nothing to Batman because there's a 1% chance Superman might go nuts, and we must treat it as an absolute because a 1% equals 100% when 1 and 100 equal 100. Therefore, you add 2 zeros to 1 and it's 100, and therefore Superman must die.
He has the power to wipe out the entire human race, and if we believe there's even a 1% chance that he is our enemy, we have to take it as an absolute certainty.
Rather than complain about the 1% or the 0.1%, why not make the rest of America and put them into the 1%? So this is simple math. If you have 1% here, 1%, you have 99.
Yeah.
And if you move the 9 in there, you have 19. And then you move the other...
Listen, it's just simple math. That's what it is. Or maybe it was just because he lost Jack. Jack did mean a lot to Bruce.
Who?
By the way, why did Jack need Bruce to tell him to clear people out of the building when the aliens were attacking? Wouldn't that just make sense?
It just raises too many questions.
Batman's whole story is really poorly thought out. It's clearly just an excuse to get some The Dark Knight Returns inspired battle scenes, which even in that story, for them to fight, they had to butcher the character of Superman. But since that is very much a Batman Elseworlds story, you can let that bit slide. This is supposed to be the proper DC movie universe. Batman's reasoning is so weak. If they start fighting because of some emotional event that just happened to Batman, that would make much more sense. Instead, Batman has been planning this, and apparently the master detective that he is, he let Lex plant his little notes and goad him into fighting Superman, and he goes for it wholeheartedly. Superman does a bit better here. People are making up stories about travesties supposedly being committed by Superman.
He came down, then came fire. Even worse came after.
And Clark knows he's innocent of this, so he investigates that, as well as looking into this guy that dresses up like a bat and murders and brands people. He is manipulated by Lex to investigate Batman, but outside of a little intimidation, doesn't really pursue it. Eventually, Lex has to kidnap Clark's mom to get him to go after Batman. Unfortunately, while he does try talking, he also talks while approaching Batman in a menacing fashion and throwing him a lot. Here's an idea. If you want to keep the peace, keep your distance and explain the situation. Don't get in the other person's face and explain that you're not a threat. It's counter to what you're trying to do. Superman also appears to be suffering from this hero complex where people love him, but he is clearly not thrilled with the attention. It begs the question, why is he Superman? Something Man of Steel should have tackled, but didn't. And now this movie can tackle it, but it won't. It'll just have Superman hovering over people, acting like a god, but being annoyed when people treat him with reverence, because that makes sense. Iron Man 2 stars Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, aka Tony Stark. He is overconfident to the point of obnoxiousness in this movie.
But I did you a big favor. I have successfully privatized world peace.
But he is also dying from the arc reactor he made. He has yet to figure out a way to design it to stop killing him. Yet, if he goes without it, the shrapnel lodged in his chest will kill him.
Unfortunately, the device that's keeping you alive is also killing you.
He's in a no-win scenario. His overconfidence ends up playing like a reaction to his impending mortality. He knows he is dying and just starts focusing on himself, which makes sense to a degree, but then he starts burning bridges he doesn't want to burn. This stuff is actually interesting, but somewhat underdeveloped. He also spends time looking back at his relationship with his father, which starts coming into focus when Ivan Vanko accuses Howard Stark of stealing the arc reactor technology from his father, Anton. Another interesting storyline that is severely underdeveloped. Both these storylines come together when Tony stumbles onto a map of an old Stark Expo that he breaks down and discovers that's a guide to discovering a new element. Tony rediscovers that element, and it also ends up being the exact thing he needs to fix his chest unit. You might be thinking, geez, that seems like a huge coincidence, and that's because it is. It's some incredibly lazy writing.
Oh my God, writing is so hard.
It literally feels like they had some cool story ideas for Tony, but didn't know how to bring them together, so this forced them together without any real thought. Yet, despite how underdeveloped and forced Tony's story is, it's much more engaging than either Batman or Superman. These are all weak hero stories, yet somehow Tony sucks less. It's a point for Marvel.
I'm not saying that from the ashes of captivity never has a greater Phoenix metaphor been personified in human history.
In Iron Man 2, we have Mickey Rourke as Ivan Vanko and Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer. Ivan Vanko is seen in the opening credits caring for his dying father and making his own arc reactor. We later learn that his father helped Howard Stark develop the reactor technology, but Howard cut him out when he learned that Vanko wanted to sell it to get rich.
Anton Vanko is the other side of that coin. Anton saw it as a way to get rich. When your father found out, he had him deported.
Here's a serious question. Does Ivan have legit grievances here? Howard Stark made his fortune selling weapons. He clearly had no issues selling inventions with less than positive effects on the world to get rich. Yet when Anton wants to do something similar, Howard casts him off and forces him to live the rest of his days in squalor, raising his son with almost nothing.
The Russians found out he couldn't deliver. They shipped his ass off to Siberia, and he spent the next 20 years in a vodka-fueled rage. Not quite the environment you want to raise a kid in.
Now, does this mean it's cool for Ivan to try to kill Tony and put God knows how many lives in jeopardy because he has a grievance? No, of course not. The second he did that, he was in the wrong. But it still doesn't make what Howard did to Anton right. Maybe there's more to this story that the movie doesn't present, but what it does present shows Howard as a jerk who kicked out his partner, likely so he could take all the money for himself. There's an interesting story here, perhaps with Tony having to come to grips with how his father did care for him very much, but also did some disgusting actions to make his fortune, and perhaps wasn't a great guy. But this movie seems just fine with ignoring these ideas and just plowing forward, acting like Howard was in the right to dismiss Anton, and that Ivan's grievances are completely unjustified.
You come from a family of thieves and butchers, and now, like all guilty men, you try to rewrite your own history, and you forget all the lives the Stark family has destroyed.
I'm busy.
There's a very interesting story here. The movie doesn't seem interested in exploring it and just wants to make Ivan a bad guy while ignoring the fact that it could explore the idea that maybe Ivan does have reasons for feeling victimized by Tony. Ivan is seen in this movie as an absolute monster, but there is a much more interesting villain here. In the end, Rourke does a good job and is underserved by the script. Then we have Hammer, who is a joke. In a typical movie with two villains, one will be the brains and the other the muscle, but Ivan is both the brains and the muscle here. Hammer is the money behind Ivan, and that's all he's good for. Ivan could be seen as more an Iron Man villain, while Hammer is more a villain for Stark, but Hammer is honestly just a goofball. He's only here because there are two main villains to talk about in Batman v Superman. Batman v Superman has Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor Jr., and Doomsday as played by a cave troll from Lord of the Rings, maybe?
They have a cave troll.
Anyways, I want to talk about Doomsday because he does represent something interesting here. Doomsday is the exact threat Batman wants to treat Superman like in this movie. He is Superman as an uncaring, super powerful monster. Meanwhile, Lex Luthor is Batman if he has ADD and was insane and liked to piss in jars.
It's cherry.
What the hell is that?
Maybe Batman if mixed with Howard Hughes? I legit have no idea what their goal is with Lex. It's clear he's supposed to be a dark reflection of Batman, being that they are both trust fund babies, but he is so manic that it's tough to see him as any sort of dark reflection. Maybe if Batman sought to protect people and Lex sought only personal gains, it would work, but Batman kills rather freely here, and Lex does have his reasons to want to get rid of Superman.
No man in the sky intervened when I was a boy to deliver me from Daddy's fists and abominations. I figured out way back. If God is all-powerful, he cannot be all good.
They're insane, but there are reasons. He's got an anti-God complex, so sure, whatever. Batman has an anti-super powerful alien complex for most of the movie. So they are less reflections and more the same character, except one of them's dark and brooding and the other is just batshit and annoying. The best villain in Iron Man 2 is Ivan Vanko. The best villain in Batman v Superman is surprisingly Doomsday. Put those two against each other, and there is clearly one that is a character and one that is just a mindless machine of destruction. It's a point for Marvel.
You're worse.
Batman v Superman was written by David S. Goyer and Chris Terrio. It is a dumb movie. It is an insanely dumb movie. I'm not saying there aren't good ideas in this thing, but it's so goddamn dumb. I know there are people who love this movie, but understand you can love this movie and also acknowledge that it's fairly dumb. The whole premise falls apart if Batman uses any critical thinking in the 18 months between the destruction of Metropolis and his throwdown with Superman. Literally one moment of clarity, and he would realize his plans to murder Superman were unnecessary and this movie wouldn't happen. And you can argue that Lex Luthor is manipulating him, but that is again stupid. This Lex Luthor isn't even presented as any sort of significant super genius. He's just crazy and goofy and pisses in jars. Let's not forget his other big villain move, force-feeding a guy a Jolly Rancher. Senator Finch saw through his shit.
Take a bucket of piss and call it Granny's peach tea. Take a weapon of assassination and call it deterrence. You won't fool a fly or me. I'm not gonna drink it.
How do you expect me to believe a random senator can see through Lex's manipulations, but Batman, the world's greatest detective, somehow can't? He can't because the movie is stupid. Superman's only real big crime here is that he doesn't know how to talk to Batman without being an aggressive asshole. He is being manipulated by Lex too, but instead of planning to kill Batman for a year and a half, he just gives Batman a warning and doesn't pursue the issue until Lex forces his hand. In which case, he just needs to learn how to talk to people without getting in their face and pushing them. So much of this movie is running on non-stop contrivances. These characters are not being written as characters, but as tools to mindlessly push the story forward. Superman's arc should have been him firmly establishing he wants to be Superman because he wants to do good. They literally kill him. The only thing he establishes is that he wants to protect Earth because he likes to bang Lois in the bathtub. That's real deep writing there, guys. Here's the problem. People like to treat this movie like it's smart because it's presented in such a serious way. Everything in this movie has such gravity that quickly becomes exhausting. People criticize Marvel because they do jokes, but jokes are what break up the monotony of the serious events that will happen in these movies. Yes, sometimes Marvel goes overboard with the jokes, but an occasional joke is not a bad thing.
What? I see this as an absolute win.
It's hardly unrealistic either. People tell jokes in real life too. In fact, what seems more real to you? A world where things are largely serious and occasionally there's a joke? Or a world where everything's just grim dark? Sure, Zack Snyder used his visual style, and you can use that to try to make the movie sound smart. Like how the perfect pearl necklace represents Bruce's childhood, and the destruction of that necklace represents how his childhood was shattered and collapsed onto the grimy, dirty ground. To paraphrase Peter K. Rosenthal, you're kidding yourself if you don't think I can find some sort of trenchant social-political critique in this superhero cum rag. Don't think I won't bring up how the rise of the superhero is similar to humanity's rise in technology, and how instead of using our abilities to become better, we use it to destroy ourselves. I can scoop that shit out of my ass, and half the time it'll take them to greenlight Batman v Superman 2. Iron Man 2 is written by Justin Theroux, and in many ways, it's about legacy.
It's about legacy. It's about what we choose to leave behind for future generations.
Ivan feels he is following his father's legacy to get revenge upon the son of the man who wronged him. Tony feels he is following the legacy of a man who really didn't care about him.
He was cold, he was calculating. He never told me he loved me, he never even told me he liked me.
And he is also pondering what legacy he will leave behind, with it looking like his life is ending soon. Just looking at the themes, the idea that Tony thinks Howard doesn't care about him, only to discover his dad developed a cure and need to save his life, that has some serious potential. Similar potential to a man thinking he's fighting some disconnected alien, only to discover that they are more alike than they are different. These are all great ideas. Execution on both is horrendous.
What is your fucking problem, man?
The idea that Howard discovered an element that could be useful, but instead of writing it down and putting it someplace safe, he designed a Stark Expo to be that element, and Tony just finds the model that he needs to break it down, and voila, he is cured? I'm not looking for realism in my superhero movies, but some logical through line might be nice. As for BVS, Batman is literally talking about Superman's parents before they reveal that Superman had a mom.
I bet your parents taught you that you mean something.
So clearly he knows that Superman had parents, meaning the only revealed to him is that their mom's name is Martha. That's it. If Superman's mom was named May or Maria or literally anything else, Batman would kill him.
What the f?
That is some sloppy writing. Back to Iron Man 2, which has so many awesome story ideas, like how Tony let Rhodey steal one of his suits so that way that legacy wouldn't die with him.
You let your friend fly away with your suit. Now, if I didn't know better...
You don't know better. I didn't give it to him. He took it.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. But no, he took it? The little brother walked in there, kicked your ass, and took your suit. Is that possible?
Well, according to Mr. Stark's database security guidelines, there are redundancies to prevent unauthorized usage.
But the movie doesn't explore that. It just has an action scene and then moves on. Did Anton have any validity to his grievances about Howard? Well, let's just have a cool action scene at the racetrack and then move on. How did Ivan's legs not get completely destroyed after this scene anyway? Someone, please explain that one to me. Both these movies have some cool ideas, but completely fail to explore them. But there is a difference. Iron Man 2 is simply overloaded with cool story ideas, and it's clear it has some idea on how to explore them, and just doesn't have time. Batman v Superman has ample time and just doesn't seem to understand how to explore its themes. It just has all these characters act like maniacs rather than treat them like real people and have them properly exploring the ideas at hand. Both these movies are so flawed, but again, it's no contest. One movie has all the time in the world and fumbled it. One has solid ideas and just didn't follow through on them. It's not even really that close. It's a point for Marvel.
Tony. You're too young to understand this right now, so I thought I would put it on film for you. I built this for you.
Iron Man 2 has Gwyneth Paltrow as Pepper Potts, Don Cheadle as James Rhodes, Scarlett Johansson as Natalie Rushman aka Natasha Romanoff, Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury, Patrick Swayze as Dalton, Clark Gregg as Phil Coulson, John Slattery as Howard Stark, Jon Favreau as Happy Hogan, and Gary Shandling as Senator Stern. Part of the problem with Iron Man 2 is the overloading. It becomes clear with this supporting cast. Pepper becomes the CEO of Stark and is infuriated by Tony's behavior, and that's about it. Rhodey steals one of Tony's old suits, and that's about it. We have Natalie Rushman, Nick Fury, and Phil Coulson all serving the exact same purpose and all easily capable of being compressed to one character. Coulson is only really there to plant seeds for Thor. He's literally introduced to babysit Tony. He gives a little badass speech about it.
I've been authorized by Director Fury to use any means necessary to keep you on premises. If you attempt to leave or play any games, I will tase you and watch Super Nanny while you drool into the carpet.
Then he almost instantly fails. And then when Tony returns, it's brought up how he ran off and now Coulson is leaving.
I heard you broke the perimeter.
Yeah. That was like 3 years ago. Where you been?
I was doing some stuff.
Howard is obviously there for themes, and it works fairly well. Happy is comic relief, and Stern is just a jerk.
You deserve this. Sorry. Funny how annoying a little prick can be, isn't it?
Batman v Superman has Amy Adams as Lois Lane, Diane Lane as Martha.
Why did you say that name?
Lawrence Fishburne as Perry White, Jeremy Irons as Alfred, Holly Hunter as Senator Finch, Patrick Swayze as Dalton, Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, Ezra Miller, Jason Momoa, and Ray Fisher as email attachments, Michael Shannon as a dead dude. Most of these characters mean nothing to the story. Hell, Perry White spends the entire movie telling Clark that no one wants to read about the Batman and that he needs to cover the local football team.
Nothing about football, nothing about friends of the Metropolis Library, just the goddamn Gotham Bat thing. Here, you drop this thing. Nobody cares about Clark Kent taking on the Batman.
Martha,
why did you say that name?
Is really just there to get kidnapped. Finch is there to slow down Lex Luthor's plans and get a jar of piss. By the way, can Superman not smell that? It's a big jar of piss. Piss has a definite smell. Why doesn't he think it's weird the senator smells like piss?
Probably should have washed this. Smells like R. Kelly sheets.
Lois gets the story where she investigates the weird-looking bullet. Why is it a weird-looking and easily traceable bullet? That makes no sense. Why not just use a regular bullet?
The metal was developed by a private company,
What company?
LexCorp.
Lex Luthor.
He also had private security contractors at the desert compound.
The only reason to use an easily traceable bullet is to mislead people, but leads right to LexCorp. So why would you do that? And also, apparently this guy is Martian Manhunter. So why is he just chilling when Doomsday is wrecking shit? He's gotta be a lot more useful in that fight than Batman is. Anyways, Wonder Woman is there to open emails and fight Doomsday, and for Batman to forget he fucking knows who she goddamn is for a trailer moment.
She with you?
I thought she was with you.
For fuck's sake, Batman, you know who she is. She is with you. Oh, and Lois also gets to explain that Clark's mom's name is Martha.
Why did you say that name?
Please, stop!
Why did you say that name?
It's his mother's name!
Isn't Batman a detective? How does he not know this? He was face to face with Clark. It's not like it's a great disguise.
People ever tell you look like Superman?
No, I've never heard that before.
She also almost drowns to get the spear back. Honestly, the only supporting character who works well, who is probably the only character the audience is 100% behind the entire movie, is Alfred. He is honestly the best character in the whole movie.
A mineral capable of weakening Kryptonian cells. It is now aboard the White Portuguese being delivered to Lex Luthor, who I am going to steal it from him.
To keep it out of Luthor's hands. To destroy it.
Say what you will about the overabundance of Iron Man 2 characters, they at least feel like characters, and even if they are underused, they at least don't feel as forced in their actions. It's another clear point for Marvel.
Tony, you gotta get upstairs and get on top of this situation right now.
Batman v Superman has the typical visual aesthetic of a Zack Snyder movie. I would add that this is probably his darkest movie from a completely visual standpoint. That being said, Snyder is a very visual director, so it is clear every shot is intentional. They don't always tell the story as effectively as they could, but it's also clear they are shots Snyder wants. Pretentious would be the best way to describe these visuals. It's why so many like to talk about this movie like it's the best movie ever. It's not because the movie is truly great, but it is presented as though it is meaningful and powerful. But since the actual meaning or power of those images isn't actually explored, it comes off as shallow and pointless. I feel like I always end up bashing on the visuals of the MCU, but they are usually very bland and uncreative. There are definite cool shots to look at here, but overall it's not very memorable. I wish Batman v Superman wasn't so unnecessarily dark and was more unified in its storytelling. The visuals give us a Superman that seems very exhausted and tired of saving people, and not one that actually wants to help. I don't think that's what they're actually going for, but that's what the visuals are telling us. So, who gets the point? The movie with meticulous visuals that sometimes diverge from the story, or the movie with kinda good visuals that never diverge from the story but don't really add anything either? This is a close one, and it shouldn't be. Zack Snyder is a very visual director. This should be a slam dunk for him, but instead, he just barely edges it out. It's a point for DC. Iron Man 2 has a score by John Debney. It also has a soundtrack album released by AC/DC, of which a big 3 songs made it to the actual movie. The score itself is fine, but not very memorable. Batman v Superman score is by Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL, and while it's not either of their best work, it is a serious highlight of this movie, perhaps the best aspect of this movie. Sound design wise, we get some cool sounds for Ivan's whips and Iron Man wearing a suit. Batman v Superman has the Kryptonian ship and Doomsday. Overall, Iron Man 2 has better sound design, but Batman v Superman has significantly better score. The question is the score good enough to override Iron Man 2's sound design? The answer has to be yes. It's a point for DC. It's clear Batman v Superman wants to be this huge, deep, and meaningful movie. It wants to explore the impact of the Superman on our world, but does this without actually doing anything with it. It doesn't explore or develop Superman in a meaningful way. Batman, who is treated like the avatar for humanity, is equally unexplored, except if being on a murderous rampage counts. It certainly doesn't make him more relatable. This movie wants to be a think piece. It wants to be a big world-building piece that sets up a universe. It wants to present the idea of Superman existing in a real world. It fails on every front. Iron Man 2 fails on many fronts, but there are aspects of this story that work quite well. Robert Downey Jr. again really does a great job as a character who is arrogant to the point of obnoxiousness, but you still wind up rooting for him. Gwyneth Paltrow is still great as Pepper. Don Cheadle is a fantastic upgrade for Rhodey. The whole cast just works. Despite the story issues, Mickey Rourke proves to be a very ominous presence on screen. We have 2 very broken movies, but one pretty much completely fails to function, while the other just has a lot of bugs, but still somewhat functions. It's another point for Marvel.
Didn't expect to see you here.
Look, it's me. I'm here. Deal with it. Let's move on.
I drop it.
In about 2 months, we'll be getting Zack Snyder's Justice League, and that's awesome. He lost control of the movie, and now he gets to come back and create his vision of it. I, for one, am very interested to see what he does with it, but there is a problem with this. Zack Snyder has a fan base, which is great on its own, but this fan base will worship anything he does at this point. That is not helpful to a creative person. When a creative person surrounds themselves with only people who like their stuff and has no one to tell them no, well, that's how a creature like Jar Jar Binks is created.
You're thinking people gonna die?
Zack Snyder is a visual director of unbelievable talent. He comes up with some absolutely stunning visuals in all his movies, but he does this at the expense of the story. probably the best example was Watchmen, where he followed the panels to great detail, and easily one of the worst aspects of it were where he let flourishes override the story, mainly in making superheroes of that piece look super awesome and powerful, when in reality the comic book was a deconstruction meant to expose the problems of superheroes in the real world, not make them look cool. But overall, it's a great movie. But we do see a pattern with Snyder where the more story control he gets, the more he just fills it with cool visuals that may run counter to the story he's trying to tell. And now he'll have full control over this upcoming Justice League, and it's worth pointing out that the 4-hour Justice League would never have been released to theaters in 2017. Even if he stayed on board, the studio would have him trimming so much of that, probably putting the same 2-hour mandate on it that Joss Whedon had. Snyder has the potential to make some truly great movies, but because he is now surrounded by his fan base that love everything he does, it's doubtful his best stuff is ahead of him. I'd love to be wrong. It'd be great if his Justice League destroyed all my doubts, but will likely just prove them right. The problem with Batman v Superman wasn't that Snyder had too little control over the project. Say what you will about Jon Favreau, he clearly shows an interest in telling a story. Snyder gets caught up in his visuals, and if he had someone who made sure he used his visuals to enhance the story, he could make some truly great movies. We'll see, maybe his Justice League will be amazing, but it seems more likely it'll just be this 4-hour-long monstrosity where a director gets carte blanche to do whatever he wants, which is rarely a good thing.
They think order and chaos are somehow opposites and try to control what won't be.
I used to fuck guys like you in prison.